Before we get started, though, I would like to make a couple of comments. One is that the mayor called me late this afternoon and informed me that the meeting that she had scheduled for last night, she postponed till tonight so that she could be here last night when the police department budget was before us, but that she won't be here this evening. Councilor Connery?
Mr. President, I know you're going to make a comment. I'm just concerned that this probably is one of the largest budgets that has been put together and submitted by the mayor, and she's not here, considering the fact that you, some time ago, drew up a schedule for these meetings, and I think it's important that she be here for these budget sessions. All of us have some personal issues that we have to attend to and may miss a couple of these meetings, but, you know, I think it would be clearly in her best interest to let you know, as the president, the reason why she can't be here.
All I was informed was that she wouldn't be here. There was a meeting. I was not privileged to what that meeting was.
I mean, for you to receive a call late in the day that the mayor's not going to be here, I find that somewhat insulting to you as the president, and I think that she should let the council, you know, the reasons why she's not here. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, councilors, last evening at the beginning of the meeting, a councilor questioned whether we should continue forward with the budget hearing, and I just wanted to be real clear. My opinion was asked. I stated my opinion, which was simply that I thought we should go forward with what was before us. But my opinion is only one of 11 here, and if a majority of this body chooses at any time to suspend or end these hearings, they can clearly do that. All we need is a motion, a second, and a majority of the councilors to vote for that. So if you disagree with what I'm doing in going forward, there is a process for you to do that, other than asking my opinion. If you ask my opinion, I'm going to give it to you, and that's all you'll get. Thank you. We'll start tonight with the Public Works, Administration, Planning, and Engineering on page 47. Public Works, Administration, Engineering, and Planning, Personal Services, $329,828. Administration and Planning expenses, $8,050. Total $337,878. Is that it? Councilors, do we want to take them all separately? The animal control and parks and streets, public facilities?
Where are you, Mr. President?
I was on page 47. I simply gave you the 329,828.
I really don't think you need to take them separately. I think
Okay,
if
then
someone
we will-
has
we will go
questions on
forward.
any line, they could
We'll go
ask.
forward and say animal control, personal services, $39,150. Animal control expenses, $19,200, for a total of $58,350. Public Works, building care and maintenance. Dick, is this personal?
It's a combination,
Yeah.
City Hall maintenance.
City Hall maintenance of $132,000. Other building miscellaneous expenses and repair, $20,000, total of $152,000. Public Works Cemetery, personnel services, $129,314. Cemetery expenses, $55,636, total of $148,950. Public Works Highway, personal services, $646,836. Highway services and supplies, $660,800. Highway garage and repair, $331,625. Total highway, $1,639,261.
Mr. President,
Counselor?
is that on page 51?
That's correct.
I have a question. to the Commissioner.
Can I just finish his numbers, and then we'll go back, Counselor?
You may, sir, you're the boss.
Public Work, Parks, Personal Services, $156,812. Parks Expense, $45,801. Public Works, Snow and Ice, $400,000. Counselor Conry.
Yes, on page 51, Commissioner, under Highway Services and Supplies, Contract Services, Streetlights, an increase of $160,000 in the FY12 budget. Is this to turn on more streetlights? The additional $160,000?
Initially, the plan is to turn on the lights that have been paid for by customers over the last couple of years, and then we're still in the midst of discussing a potential purchase of the streetlight system. So until that's worked out one way or the other, we won't decide whether it will be used to turn on more streetlights or to purchase the streetlights.
So the $160,000 to pay for the streetlights that customers are now paying for themselves, but there is additional revenue in there just in case we decide that we're going to purchase the streetlights.
Yeah. Out of the $160,000, about $10,000 will pay for the lights that are currently being paid for by residents, and then the rest, it remains to be decided what it will be used for, whether it's turning on lights or purchasing lights.
I would like to make a motion to cut that $160,000 down to $30,000.
That's a recommendation.
I think, if I still have the floor, Mr.
Yep,
President?
you certainly do.
I think that to put that into the budget in anticipation of purchasing streetlights, again, is wrong. I think the mayor has done that on 2 different occasions in this budget. Number one, in anticipation of a trash fee, she put that money in there. And there was one other, the money was put in anticipation of revenue or in anticipation of spending something before we even have a contract. We are still negotiating, so therefore, I am opposed to the $160,000 and request that that appropriation be cut on the line item. Thank you.
Counselor Di Natale.
Commissioner, are you saying that this money that's been increased in the streetlight account is not entirely for, is not specific to restoration of streetlights that are right? I know you said we're going to pay for the lights that people are paying on their own,
That's right.
but there are still a lot of streets in the city that are dark where people refuse to pay. My understanding from reading the mayor's letter to us, and it's right here, and I hate to use a term that some councilors might not like, but it says, highlights of this budget, 70% increase in funding for streetlights. That's very vague. But when I read it, and when the public read it, we took that to mean that she finally woke up to reality, listened to the people who put her in office, and she's restoring 70% of the funding for the lights. And now, as what you've told us is, well, that's still up in the air. She might use it for the lights, she might use it to purchase the lights, which we're nowhere near getting to yet. So, I understand where Councilor Conry's coming from. In the meantime, I don't want to cut the money, because the money is there to fund the streetlights, not to purchase them. Unless we have a plan in place right now that it's going to happen soon, this is another one of those accounts where this is going to sit dormant, and my concern is as the year progresses, if we do not purchase the lights for whatever reason, I'm concerned that the public in this council is being misled into believing that this is for a strict increase in funding for lights, when that may not be the case. And, you know, the media reported that. I was excited to read this. Now my enthusiasm is lessened. So I don't think I'm ready to support cutting this. I think, once again, unfortunately, the mayor is not here to defend this. I think the public needs to be aware that this is not a flat-out increase in streetlights. Coincidentally, take the 160 minus the 10 that it would cost to restore lights that are being paid for, that leaves 150. How many streetlights can the city restore using $150,000 for the year? Ballpark.
Oh, I'd guess about 1,000 or so.
1,000 lights. You know, I would be okay if it was 500, 750, that's still a lot, that's still progress, but this is a vague appropriation. And as she wrote in her letter, it's for funding, increase in the funding for streetlights. She's not specific here. So, I don't want to say she misled us, but this could be deceiving. And I hope what you said can be reversed, because if that is what this is for, then I won't support that. Because that's not etched in stone, that's not a guarantee. You know, people want restoration now. So, it sounds to me like only 10 of that 160 is not going to restore anything. It's just going to take the burden off the taxpayer, which I support, but it's not going to increase anything above what we have now, contingent on our progress with purchasing the lights. We may or may not use it for those purposes. You have no set plan right now.
Yeah, we're still doing our due diligence with Unitil and looking into the purchase. They're about 75.
If I could just comment, the mayor did state to me today that if councilors had questions regarding the purchasing of the lights, that it's something that she thinks we need to go into executive session for, because she would not want to speak publicly. She thought that with negotiations going on, it could hinder the negotiations. So just be aware of that. Doesn't mean you can't speak to it, Lenny, but...
Sure. I mean, yes, we're still doing our due diligence with Unitil. There are about 75 communities in Massachusetts that have purchased their streetlights from their utility, so it's something we're looking seriously into, because if the savings do materialize, then we'd be able to turn on even more streetlights, but we still need all the data from Unitil to decide whether it makes sense for us or not.
And that's wonderful. If that is the end game, and that is a probability that we can do this, then wonderful. But I won't go into any more detail, but the fact remains, the public needs to be aware, this is not to turn their light back on. This could be or couldn't be. So this is there in case our negotiations are successful, and that is still up in the air. That is not how I read this. And my concern and my question would be for her is, what are the status and when will this happen? Because I don't want this to happen after December, and then, it's too late. So I just want people to realize that this 70% is not a straight-out restoration of the lights. It's contingent on how negotiations are going to go with Unitil. Thank you.
Lenny, I just wanted to ask for a clarification on something. You indicated that a small percentage of this money was to turn on the lights, or to pay for the lights that currently are being paid for by residents. Is that correct?
That's correct. About $10,000 per year for that.
I would just like to state that I think that is horrible. The mayor is telling us that she is going to take money from the budget to pay for the lights for those individuals who had lights put on out of their pocket in front of their homes. My response is, not everybody could afford to have those lights put on in front of their homes. So if you couldn't afford it, the city's then not going to do it for you because you didn't do that. Or secondly, a whole bunch of people, instead of having a light put on in front of their home, paid for and had their yards lit. And those people aren't going to get anything. The thought process behind that is crazy to me. Crazy to me. You paid for one, so we're going to, and you're angry, so we're going to pay your bill. That makes no sense at all. And when push comes to shove, that money needs to be taken out of the budget also. Councilor Joseph.
I happen to agree with Councilor Hay on that point. Page 47, civil engineer. I know that last year that you had said that you were going to hire a civil engineer. I guess it didn't happen. It says in the FY11 budget, there's $16,000 that was spent. Was somebody hired already for this position? And
He
when?
started working about 6 weeks ago. He's being paid for by the enterprise funds because of all the engineering type work that's going on with EPA, for example, with the consent decree negotiations.
So this is
he's
a
not
full,
being paid for out of the general fund, he's being paid for out of the enterprise funds.
so that's a full-time person.
Yes.
The $40,000 for program management assistant, 60%, is that just a transfer of somebody into your department for $40,194?
That position has been in community development in recent years, and the position would be shared between CDBG within Public Works and Housing within the Health Department.
So that's not a new position, right? That's just moving that person over.
Yeah. Right now, there's a temporary person doing some of those duties, but there isn't a full-time permanent person on board right now in that position.
So this $40,194 is a new hire? It's
It
under...
will have to be advertised, yes.
So that person doesn't exist?
That's right. Right now, there's a temporary part-time person doing some of that work.
Where is the administrative assistant being removed from? The part-time administrative assistant for $15,502.
Well, that's the temporary person that we have now,
Who's Larry?
working in community development.
So you're hiring, what is a temporary clerk potentially into a position? Or it has to be advertised?
It will be advertised.
Okay. And page 49, is there a contract services for cleaning City Hall that we still don't have a custodian? Is that $13,000 for contract services for cleaning the building?
That's part of that line item, is for the cleaning service that we have. They come in twice a week to clean City Hall.
So there's still no intention of getting a custodian in this building?
That's right, we have no staff for City Hall maintenance.
And what's that doing to the building? I mean, I look at the floor, the rug out here, this brand-new rug that you have, and you've had it washed, and look at it, it looks like the one that was put down, that we took up 10 years ago. I mean,
Yeah, we just had it cleaned 2 weeks ago.
I know, that's what I'm looking at, and it looks like it's the, I says, this is the new rug? I thought, we went out to bid, he said, oh yeah, that's the new rug. So there's no plan on having anybody basically to service this building?
That's right.
Is anything being done, like shared within any department to do cleaning, or is it just the contracted services? If a light bulb goes out, who replaces the light bulb?
Yeah, I mean, we got cooperation from the building department where the electrical inspector and mechanical inspector do plumbing and electrical work in City Hall. Plus, we've had DPW workers doing work within City Hall.
Okay.
But there's no maintenance staff in the building.
It's just, to me, it just seems like we're taking people that are being paid more money than the job that they're supposed to do, to come in and do something that we could probably hire somebody for a lot less to do and maintain this building properly. I mean, we all know that we're not the best at maintaining our properties, but when you go and not have a custodian for a building this size, to me, that's just penny wise and pound foolish. Okay. Miscellaneous expenses and repairs, minus $54,000.
It's because last year we had a big bill at B.F. Brown School to winterize the building and board up the building, and we won't see that expense again this year, I hope.
Okay. On the next page, page 50, under cemetery for a master plan, $20,000.
Yes, that's something that the cemetery trustees and the cemetery staff feel is necessary. Some of the cemetery property is unusable due to ledge, and in other areas we have high groundwater, so we want to make sure that we use the remaining space in an effective way. We also have one columbarium in place. We want to look into whether additional columbariums should be installed and where they would go, and we also need to look into whether we want to explore the feasibility of a crematorium. There are none in this part of the state. Right now, everybody has to go down to Worcester for that service.
So is that a consultant fee, $20,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, one second. Councilor Clark?
We've got an event happening outside that I think we should turn our attention to. I have not heard what anyone has said in the last 5 minutes. I can't concentrate at all on what's going on when I take a look at what's going on outside. And I would request a short break.
Anybody object? We are recessed.
To the basement? One and a half people here. I know they were budgeted in last year's budget, but supposedly we've been in a hiring freeze, and people have been hired in the last 6 weeks. So I just don't understand when we're in a hiring freeze and when we're not in a hiring freeze. That's all.
Councilor Conry?
Yes, I had my hand up earlier. I'd just like to quickly run back to page 51 on the streetlight issue. This really upsets me, because we have heard the word, since the mayor has been in office, transparency, transparency. This sure and heck is not transparent. It's out and out deception on the part of the mayor. This line is very deceptive, and I am very concerned.
Councilor Reynolds?
I don't think that council can speak that way about the mayor.
I think the council can speak that way about the mayor.
I may. It's very deceptive, and if anyone doesn't believe it, all they have to do is pick up this budget. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Di Natale?
With all due respect to Councilor Reynolds, deception is the correct word, Councilor, because if you read the letter the mayor gave us, she says, and I quote, "The highlight of this budget is to increase streetlights by 70%. That's what it says. So anybody who reads that will take that to mean that 70% of the lights that are shut off are going to be turned back on. That is not what the commissioner is telling us. What he is telling us is that that may happen, it may not, and we don't know when it will happen if it does because of these negotiations. That's not what the mayor put in this budget. That is deceiving, because when I read that, we're all educated people here, you read that, that's what it comes across as, that's what the public believe. I had people talk to me during Memorial Day weekend saying, wow, we finally got to her. She's increasing the streetlights. I can't wait for my light to be turned on. Well, I hate to burst those people's bubbles, because that may not happen. That is what was written to us. That is not an opinion, that is a stated fact from this package she gave us. And unfortunately, she's not here to clarify. And if she's not here to clarify, we have to go with the written word that she provided to us. I take back what I said earlier about not wanting to cut the money for the streetlight account. Thinking about it more, I think that if the mayor needs to talk to this council about what the plans are, definitive plans are for this money, if and when things progress, then she should come back to us and appropriate the money in a supplemental or in a transfer, whatever have you, not put it in here and let it sit here for months and not be used for the purpose that we all thought it was going to be used for. I think Councilor Joseph is correct in terms of, do we have a hiring freeze in the city or not? The only department I can think of that warranted an increase in staffing was the firefighters, because we're getting grant money that sustains them over several years. Other than that, we were always told there's a hiring freeze. And I'm not against the DPW getting extra resources, obviously, but Are we picking and choosing what places get resources and what don't? I mean, no offense to you, Commissioner, but we just had the police chief here yesterday telling us that he's at the lowest level he's ever been, 52 uniformed officers. And again, no offense, but we're giving people to DPW, to the firefighters, not to the police. Or if we're giving people to the police, firefighters, not to DPW. I think it should be equal. I don't think we should be pitting one department against the other in terms of, you're going to get resources, but someone else isn't. And I'm not saying that your staff isn't as essential as the police staff, but what's a hiring freeze mean? Seems to be an effect at the police level. I thought it was across the board. Extenuating circumstances, not in the picture, Fed grants, state grants, what have you. So that's concerning to me. You said that the contract services, which is $13,000, is partly for the maintenance or the cleaning services of City Hall. Do we know what it would cost to have this service run 5 days a week? If 13K is, how much would you say that 13,000 is for the 2 days a week?
Oh, probably about 7,000.
So it costs $7,000 for 2 days, so $3,500 a day, so you're talking $15,000, $16,000 maybe for the year, for 5 days? I remember the custodian we paid, or the position was paid over 40 grand, and I'm not saying that the job's not essential, but we're paying health care and benefits for that position, where we can pay a cleaning service 5 days a week for 16 grand for the year. I can see the savings there. In terms of changing light bulbs or something, I guess I'm focused on cleaning and maintaining a proper working environment. And, there are private businesses all over the country that do private cleaning services, and they do a fine job. So, I'd say that should be 16 grand, 5 days a week. Every day they come and pick up the trash, dispose of it, clean up the offices, vacuum when everyone's gone. And that's 30K less than what you would pay a full-time employee to work here full-time. So I think we should stick with contract services, but we should increase it, full week. And it's not that much money, apparently. Thank you.
Council Reynolds.
Before I get to the point that I wanted to make here, my understanding is that the mayor has presented her budget, and it's our job to cut from it if that's what we're able to do, cut from it if we'd like to. But why the animus towards her? I mean, just do our job. If you don't like that, say, reduce it, instead of getting so angry at her. She's presented her job, she's done her job, now we do our job. That's all I want to say. I'd like to ask Mr. Saracen a question. This $160,000, which it's unclear what it's going to be for, and the $41,000 that's in this budget. If we were to vote these monies in, and they were not used, is it the mayor's prerogative, would she have the right to take those funds and put them into the rainy day account?
Yes, the 160 is the street light and the other account. Yes, that would be possible only if the mayor submitted a transfer to the council and it was subsequently approved by the city council to transfer the money into the stabilization.
So the $3 million that is currently in the stabilization fund has been approved by the council?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Council Salamito.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Lexo, how many employees are there in the Public Works Department, in not including the Cemetery Department? Just in the DPW yard?
Let me look it up, rather than think off the top of my head. Here it is. In the streets and the highway garage, we have 17, but that includes 2.5 positions that are funded by offsets such as CDBG, and then in the parks, we have 4.
So if you do deduct 4 and then deduct 2.5, you're down to about 11 men?
No, the parks was in addition to the
All right,
17.
so it's 17 deduct 2.5?
Yes. Mhm.
And those people are restricted as to the type of work they can actually do, correct?
And
In other words,
We
the
have to spend-
projects they can work on.
That's right, they do certain projects, such as the Elm Street sidewalk or the Howarth Playground.
But they don't do the sewer cleaning or the potholes or the general,
That's right, if we have $95,000 as an offset to the DPW budget, that $95,000 has to be spent on those certain projects that can't be spent on general DPW work.
does that also include your dispatcher?
He's shared with the Water Division, 50/50.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out, and maybe I should just have asked, how many people are there on the road during the day?
Probably about 10, 11.
And the reason I ask is, I know every department is very, very low, but 40,000 people, councilors, 10 or 11 men, it's just not adequate. And the people calling, we all get the same call, and this isn't a sermon, but from day one, I've always said, if there is one department that has to be increased, and it really does, it's the Public Works Department. 10 men is not enough to maintain the roads that we have. Because every one of us get a call from our constituents, and they want the roads, the roads, the roads. And we can only make so many calls to the Public Works, and they're wonderful, and you do the work, but it can only be done at such a speed. In addition, you also have people on vacation, correct?
That's right.
And you have people out injured, which happens in every department. So likelihood, you're not going to have a full complement of 10 men.
That's right, we have 10 or 11 on a good day.
So on a summertime, when people reasonably take their vacation, you can be considerably less.
Oh, yes. Mhm.
And that's when, for the most part, when people want the roads, or the best time to repair a road, in the good weather.
Right, and the other issue with these projects that we have to do is they have to be done during the good weather construction seasons, not during the winter. So during the winter, we have a fairly large staff, which is good for plowing the streets, but during the summer, 10 might be an average, but we have more during the winter and less during the summer, just because of the nature of the weather.
Thank you. I know it's not our purview to add money to any one department. I'm well aware of that. We can only cut. But I would ask if the council would consider sending in some type of communication to the mayor through the president, requesting that additional funds for additional manpower be given priority to the Public Works Department. And that's not any reflection on the police or the fire or the school department, but 7 or 8 men during the summer months is not enough. They can't do their job. And if the body feels otherwise, I'll accept that, but I would be making that request that we ask the mayor to increase their budget manpower and money-wise.
Councilor Di Natale?
How much does it cost for a starting salary of a DPW employee?
Around 30,000.
30,000. And we just allocated 60 grand for a pool for 2 months. Priorities are out of whack in this city, I'm telling you. Thank you.
Councilor Salamino?
Oh, thank you. I agree with Council Di Natale. Our priorities are very way out of whack to help the residents. But, in continuing in the question, as to the statement, and I agree with the council president, that the idea of turning on the streetlights that have been paid by the residents somehow it gives the impression that the city is going to get brighter. In reality, that's absolutely not true. Not one more light will be turned on, but the people will just not have to pay their individual bill. But don't have any impression the city's going to get any brighter, any safer, any less dangerous because of that $10,000. It's going to be dark and dangerous as it is now. I also agree with Councilor Di Natale that I would suggest that we keep that $160,000 out of the budget until there's a full explanation as to how that money is going to be spent. Because if it's in there, it will be within the control and the jurisdiction, the authority of the mayor to spend it as that person sees fit. And the people deserve a full, accurate, and transparent explanation. One other item that I'd like to talk about is if it's brought up by the mayor's budget to give the impression anyway that lights will be turned on, and then the mayor is asking that we not talk about the cost because that should be done in executive session, I think that's keeping from the public. They want to know, where's the money going? Why isn't it going to turn on the streetlights? I want more than an impression, I want more than a promise or a little idea. So when we go into executive session, there's an issue of what are you hiding? And I know executive session is a good thing, and it's very necessary when it comes to money. But right now, we're putting out there, we're going to turn on the streetlights for X amount of money. But if we're really going to talk about it in detail, whether it's a good idea, a bad idea, or a horrible idea, we're going to do it in public where the people don't hear it. And we're either going to bring it all out, or we're going to bring out none of the idea that the lights are going to be turned on at all. Thank you.
Lenny, if I could just ask a couple questions regarding the personnel. I have asked and been unclear, got unclear answers regarding the reorganization. We used to have a planning department, then there was a reorg, and the planning department became housing and community. Was that the title, Larry? Community Development Department. Community Development Department. And then the Community Development Department was supposedly restructured, and people were put in different places. Can you tell me from your department what effect that has had, what these positions are, and who reports to whom? Because they're all still sitting in the same office up on the third floor, or on the second floor. And
Right, but we have space for them now on the fourth floor, because the wastewater division has relocated to the former West Treatment Plant.
I think they're on page 47. If I'm correct, I guess. The first question is, business manager, 10%, 10%, 80%.
Okay, those that will be, become part of the Public Works, Engineering and Planning Division include the Deputy Community Development Director / Business Manager.
Okay, so that came from planning, and now you're the immediate supervisor?
Yes.
Okay.
Also the Principal Planner.
Okay. And you would be the immediate supervisor for the principal planner?
Yes.
Okay.
Community Project Planner and the Community Development Administrator.
And you would be the immediate supervisor for those two positions also?
Yes, they'll all be working for Engineering and Planning.
Ultimately working for you?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Plus we have the Program Management Assistant that we talked about earlier, which will be shared with the Health Department.
I'm sorry?
The Program Management Assistant will be shared with the Health Department.
Further down?
Yes.
We're sharing the program management assistant, 60% CDBG, 40% housing, is that the line?
That's the one.
But we're paying, the budget is coming out of your budget? Or is that
Coming out of
person getting-
CDBG and 40% out of housing.
Right, but is that person's salary going to be $40,194, or are they receiving additional money from,
The salary would be $40,194.
And who do they report to?
Again, it'll be, when that person is working in Public Works, will be reporting ultimately to me, and when in the Health Department, reporting ultimately to Steve Curry.
And this was an individual that worked in planning, that was a position in planning also? Before?
Yeah, maybe Larry can help out on what the history was.
That's correct, Counselor. That position is part of...
So some of the planning people went to Lenny full-time, some of the people went to Steve Curry full-time, and one person is being split between the two of them.
That's correct.
Can you tell me, I know this is another department also, but how many people total? Because what I'm seeing now is 1, 2, 3, 4.5 are now working for Lenny.
And 2.5.
2.5 work at Steve for the health. Okay, thank you. Counselor Caddy.
Can we go back to page 51 for a minute? I heard Counselor Connery ask to take $130,000 out of the streetlight account. I'd like to ask that we change that to take it all out, 160. People have spoken about it, but no one's asked to do that. And my reasoning with this is, I never agreed with shutting off the lights. I agreed that there were lights that could have been shut off. It was pretty easy if someone wanted a street light, a council would file a petition, go before the Public Works Commission, it would get approved, and another street light would be on. And I do think it got out of hand. But when they got shut off, I think the person responsible did the best he could, but I don't think that enough time and effort was put into which lights got shut off and which lights got kept on. Where we're at today, you don't know if you see a light that's not working, whether it's supposed to be working or it was one of the lights that got shut off. You don't know. You don't know who's paying for what. I think the whole situation with the streetlights is a mess. And the only way the council's going to be able to control it, we may not agree. It comes before us, we're going to, maybe the people that paid for a light should be reimbursed, and someone's going to think they shouldn't be, and but at least it comes before the council in the form of finances, and we'll sit here and talk it out amongst us if the mayor comes with a plan, and we vote for it. And if the majority of the council votes for whatever the plan is or changes it, that's the way it will go. But right now, the situation with the streetlights is one of the worst things I think I've seen come through here. It's just a mess, and not to blame Mr. Lasko or anybody else, but it's just a mess. So that's why, take the money away. Take it away. The mayor has to come. She wants to negotiate to buy streetlights. She has to come to us for the funds. I'm not convinced we should be buying them. After we buy the lights, who's going to get up on a ladder and change them, or who's going to get the bulbs? How are we going to fund that? So again, I'd like to ask to take all the money out, see if we can straighten this out. If the mayor can't do it, I think the council should do it.
Councilor Connery.
Councilor Caddy, you used the best word. It's a mess. It's a mess. And I would go along with your recommendation that we take the entire $160,000 out. Personal opinion, to buy the streetlights is ridiculous. It's going to cost the city more money than if we have someone else doing it. But I will agree with you 100%. If you would amend my request, I would like to take the $160,000 out. Thank you, Mr. President.
Sorry, councilors, but I had an elevator down at my building and I needed to take that phone call. Councilor Reynolds.
Back to that $40,194, I'm a little bit unclear whether that's a request for a new position, a new hire, or whether a person is currently being paid that. Mr. Laxo, what is the situation again?
Right now, we have an administrative assistant doing some of those duties part-time, and she's a temporary employee. This would change it to a full-time, permanent employee.
So the person who's doing some task that you foresee a new hire doing is being paid to do her job currently?
Yes.
Yes. So I recommend that we take that out, and that if the, you need a new hire, you come before the council and request it, rather than putting it in
Council,
like...
could you give the page so that...
Yes,
Mr.
that's
Saracen-
page 47.
Program management assistant. It's the 40,000.
Anything else, Counselor? Counselor Di Natale.
These recommendations for cuts we're making, are we going to do what we normally do and have the mayor look through them and put her marker on, I agree, I disagree, I agree, I disagree, or are we going to take these up one by one ourselves and vote on them, what we think should be done?
I think
Because,
before we finish, the mayor will get a copy of recommendations that have been made. If she would like to come back to this council and make suggestions that she might supplement something or do something different, we can hear her out, but ultimately it will be up to us to vote on each one of these recommendations at the end of the process.
thank you.
Counselor Caddy.
I think I said this last year, 10, 11 councilors come to this budget session, and the mayor doesn't show up, and it happened last year. Having said that, if anything anyone asked to take off the budget tonight, I would vote in the affirmative of it. If she was interested in hearing what the discussion was, she'd be here. And I remember saying this last year, because it happened to us a couple times last year. I just have a bad feeling about it. I think a couple times we were going to adjourn because she wasn't here. We're taking times out of our life to come here to look at this budget with an opportunity to speak to the mayor so she could explain it and defend her budget, and she's not here. And I don't like it. I'm getting frustrated with it, to the point that I would probably vote on any cut that anyone made tonight. I would vote for it.
Counselor Solomito.
I concur with Councilor Caddy. If we form an opinion one way or another, and we take a vote, I think it should be a binding vote, and if we vote to cut it, and people have said tonight, we don't have the authority to add, we have the authority to cut, and I would suggest if we're going to do it, let's do it tonight. We've thought about it, we've talked about it, and if we have, that's our authority, I suggest we do it, as we go along every night.
This body, Councilor, certainly has the authority to do that. Past practice has been that we've waited and made recommendations, got to the end of the process, and then voted on all of those recommendations individually. I particularly like that because in the past, I was here where they would have a department who came first, and they would make big cuts to them, and then the guys who came later, they didn't need to make cuts because the budget was already getting balanced by that process. I think it's fairer to all of them to wait to the end, but I don't have any problem if somebody makes a motion and wants to do things. That's how it'll happen. Councilor Reynolds.
Just a point of clarification, anything that we recommend be cut at this point of time for what we regard the health of the budget, the mayor has a prerogative to bring before the council anytime during the year to have a hire or something like that, right? So we're not, we're saying no at this time to things that are uncertain and unclear. And if the mayor in the future wants to fill in any of those needs, she can appear before us.
Well, the mayor would need to find a way to fund it.
Right, but
We're talking about
right,
funding.
right,
If we
right.
cut the funding, if we cut this budget by $500,000, that means the mayor has $500,000 less next year that she can spend.
Right.
Councilor Conry.
I just have a little concern, about this budget. Does anybody on this council really believe that this budget is a balanced budget? How can you balance a budget on anticipated revenue? Amen.
Counselor Caddy.
I just want to get clear on the question that Councilor Reynolds asked earlier about page 47, the program management assistant. That is an absolute new hire. It's not someone that's already in this building that will be taking that position?
It would be a new hire that has to be
Okay.
posted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Laxo? Counselor Connery.
Mr. Laxo, I'd just like to make a comment. Despite what you have heard here this evening, I know some of these things are in the budget that are troubling to the council, but I want you to know that I believe this council appreciates the work that you have done since you have become commissioner. Things are looking up, and I personally want to thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Joseph.
I'll second that comment, because in the years that you've been here, I haven't heard why we can't get something done. I've heard how we get them done, and that's a big difference than we've heard in the past, and sometimes we don't even have to say, when is it going to get done, because it just gets done. And that's very much appreciated from you all the way down to the bottom of your staff, because I know it's because you're over there working with them, and they respect that, and you've got a great crew, and they're actually, the things are getting done without any, we can't do it. It's just getting done, and that's very much appreciated by a ward councilor and the constituents that I represent. So thank you.
Counselor Reynolds.
I also want to voice that. I think it's important, and I'd appreciate that it was brought up, that your work has caused great confidence in you and pleasure and joy that things are done in a timely fashion, and you're getting to be legendary.
Counselor Bove.
I guess everybody's going to get a pat on the back tonight. I find that the men at the DPW are absolutely amazing to get the amount of work done that they do with substandard equipment in some cases. A lot of the jobs that they do really need equipment which they don't have, so they dig in with their hands and sometimes get up to their elbows in their job, but they get the job done. And, you know, we as councilors can be damn proud of that department. It's probably one of the best, hardest working departments in the city. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, and I can't say enough about the crews at the DPW. They were all cooperating as never before, and with themselves and with other departments as well, for the benefit of the city, so it's been good to see.
Thank you, Lenny. Moving forward, Water Enterprise, page 77. Water Enterprise Summary. Total water personal services, $1,244,206. Total expenses, $600,000. Total regional water treatment expenses, $646,000. Total reimbursement to city, $700,000. Total debt service, $1,835,051. Total capital expenditures, $285,000. Total expenses, $5,310,257. Mr. Munier. Yep. But Dick. Any statement before?
Good evening, councilors, and The Water Department continues to operate, I think, efficiently, and we continue to make every effort to provide excellent quality service and to maintain a high quality of water for both domestic use and fire protection to the city of Fitchburg. We, again, every year try to do it as efficiently as possible, and we take a look at this budget every year and make adjustments accordingly from what our needs are. I think some highlights, that have been here over the last year is the efforts to collect past due invoices for water and sewer use. We've made a significant dent in the outstanding past due accounts. We've cut them by over one-half from where they were when we started this project. We continue to protect our watershed land. We were able to acquire 95 acres of land with no cost to the city through a grant program. This council approved a $1.1 million loan to rebuild our clarifiers at the regional plant. I'm happy to say that that project is almost complete, ahead of schedule and on budget. We've already started to see savings in both chemical use and electrical use at the regional plant, and it's also will guarantee, as I said during the discussion about that loan, will increase our reliability to provide water to the city for many, many years to come. The probably most significant change that I have from last year to this year is I'm asking that we hire two additional distribution personnel to put on the road. These are the people that actually do the maintenance and replace the water lines. 10 years ago, we had 31 personnel in the water department. We were down to 20 this year. And a couple of years ago, because of the lack of people, we went out and bid a contract to do most of our repair work. We just did not have the personnel to do our own repair work because of attrition and retirement and budget cuts. And so that particular budget that particular contract over the last 2 years has cost us about $100,000 to do repairs in the system. That's when a water line breaks and we have to go and repair it. We have a leak that's on the city side. We've been using a contracted service to do that work. That's analyzing that work over the last 2 years, it's cost about $100,000 a year. I looked at that pretty carefully this year and found that if we hired two people, we could do 90% of all of our own repair work. 2 people, as the commissioner said, is about $35,000 a year each, $70,000, and offset $100,000 a year of work to a contracted service. Those 2 people, in addition, could be used to paint hydrants, to do hydrant flushing, to help us out in the over almost 4,000 acres of watershed land that we own, doing maintenance on dams and cutting roads and maintaining all of the equipment that we have. So I think there's a net cost savings to hiring these 2 people, in addition to being able to get additional work done that's very difficult to get done now. Again, we've had 3 people in that distribution crew right now. But a second reason for my request is, to be quite frank, is the age of the crew. Those 3 people, in addition to some other people in the department, within 5 years will all be retirement age. So the entire crew will be eligible for retirement, will be in their early to mid-60s. And I think the institutional knowledge that's needed to operate the water distribution system is vital. It's not just like coming in and saying, turn a wrench here or go there. You have to be able to, you have to have some years of experience to be able to safely operate the distribution system. We have 3 pressure zones, we have multiple tanks, we have 200 miles of underground water lines that all operate, again, at different pressures, feed different parts of the city, and it's not just a matter of shutting a valve and not knowing what you're doing. You do need to know what you're doing out there. So I think it's vital to bring some new blood on, to bring some new people on, to start developing that institutional knowledge over the next 5 years. So that's the reason for my request for those two individuals. Partly to offset that, we did have a retirement in the meter room this past year. We had 2 meter readers, and now with our radio read meters, and after I've looked at that operation, I feel we can do that meter reading job with one person, so I am not proposing to fill that second position. So I'm asking for 2 new individuals in the distribution system, but somewhat offsetting that with 1 less individual in the meter room. And again, for those 2 reasons, a net cost savings and to start developing an institutional knowledge of to how to safely operate the distribution system. With that, I'm glad to answer any questions about the budget.
Counselor Joseph.
On page 79, the environmental civil engineer for $37,768, is that the same person that we just talked about on page 47? Civil engineer, 100% enterprise?
Yes. And it's being split between the 2 enterprise funds. That position has already been filled. And as Mr. Laxo said, a number of engineering jobs coming up, primarily through the EPA mandates. And in the budget, the salary for that position is split between water and wastewater, but we've agreed to have that person keep account of his hours, and depending on which department he works in, that department will pay for the actual hours that person spends in the department.
But I'm just confused as to why does the dollar value show up on page 47, $75,000, but also the dollar value shows up for your half of 37 on page 79. It just seems like he's being paid out of both buckets. If you're paying him, why is he in?
Should only appear in one spot for that position, unless I'm looking, I don't have the whole budget in front of me, but I don't know if Lenny could enlighten us.
Yeah, on page 47, his salary is included in the deductions in red, CDBG, home, NSP, section 108, and enterprise.
Okay, so that's... So I guess I'm still confused as to why, then why is that 37,768 even on this page, on page 79? It just seems like it's in there twice, because you have a lot of people that are going to be paid out of different funds, so why is that salary showing up twice?
What's yours said? I don't see it.
Because he's working within the engineering division. They probably didn't need. But he's getting paid for by somebody else, by the enterprise funds.
Okay. It just seems like a double dip. Dick, is that a double dip or what?
Yeah, I think you got a good point in that it probably, since 100% of it is showing under water and wastewater, that's really where it's being funded. Maybe the mayor, the attempt was to show that it's under the review or the oversight of the Public Works Commissioner. But it is, in a way, I don't know if Lenny, if you agree, it doesn't necessarily have to show on your page. Do you? Right, because it's offset down below on the credits.
37,000. On page 79, it's 37,000.
So the 75,000 could be cut, well, it's a wash.
And on this page, page 47, it's 75,500.
This one?
It's...
Yep.
Just put it one place or the other, but not both, that's all, I guess.
Make a recommendation that you cut it from page 47.
Make a recommendation that we cut $75,534 from page 47 under the title Civil Engineer 100% Enterprise.
Yep.
Yeah, what you want to also do is the offset credit, so that the net cut is zero, because it's fully funded
Oh,
okay?
And
So that the
so
negative
also
is also cut,
take
please.
$75,534 from the less CDBG home NSP Section 108 and enterprise, turning up in the red on that same page.
So the 387 will be reduced, correct?
Yes, the 387 will be
876
reduced,
will be reduced.
but the
Reduced
total
by-
of that budget will remain the same.
Right, thank you.
Correct.
Counselor Reynolds?
I think that you, did I hear correctly that you said you want to hire 2 new men?
That's correct.
And again, I come up with a question, aren't we on a hiring freeze? So how does this work? Whom would I address that? Perhaps to you, Council President.
My understanding is that the mayor says we have a hiring freeze.
And so if we cut out that money from the budget, and you could, Mr. Munier could appear before the council at some time in the future and request for a hire. Is that correct? The procedure would be,
The procedure would be that the mayor would need to find the money and then come to the council to approve an order to spend that money for those positions. But the mayor wouldn't have that money the way she would have it right now.
right, because this doesn't make sense to say we have a hiring freeze, but we're putting money in the budget to hire.
Councilor Reynolds, you're asking me to comment on whether the mayor makes sense, and I would think that somebody should be screaming point of order,
Perhaps you would.
okay?
Well, I didn't really mean that the
That's
mayor
exactly
didn't make
what you
sense.
said,
I
Counsel.
said it doesn't, this procedure doesn't seem to make sense to me, to say that there's a hiring freeze and yet to request hires.
Just to clarify, I did, and I have offset those salaries. I've reduced contracted services by $90,000 and added in place of those 2 salaries. So within the enterprise fund, which is not part of the general fund, as you all know, I've offset that $70,000 in salaries with $90,000 in cuts.
By the way, saying something does not make sense, and the system is not the same as a character assassination of somebody, a moral character assassination.
Councilor Di Natale.
How would you say your revenues are doing this year?
Revenues are down from what we projected at the beginning of the year. Again, we continue to struggle with decreased water use overall. And again, as I've said in years past, it's kind of a trend in not only Fitchburg, but all over the state. So what I've adjusted our spending over this year, and primarily in not doing capital improvements, to make sure that we come in within budget and within our revenue. I feel pretty confident that this will be the first year since I can remember that we're going to come in without dipping into retained earnings in the water department, and which was my goal at the beginning of the year, so we've adjusted our expenses to meet revenues.
My other question is regarding, I just lost my place here. The contracted services being reduced by 90,000. That's not all for the distribution, is it?
Yes,
Or it's all for that?
the 90,000 portion, yes.
The 90,000 portion is, what's the other 124?
Again, we'll keep that outside contract, and it is a pot of money that we can use for a major break if we needed to have contract services come in. If we had a major water main break, we have money to cover it. And also for some of our dam reviews and dam inspections, that money is there for. For a leak survey that we just did, we're We're actually in progress of doing a comprehensive leak survey for the whole system, so that would come out of contracted services. So there are additional monies spent out of that item, in addition to just the repair work.
I ask because the 6-year average in that account is $150,000 that we've spent. Of that $150,000 average, what would you say is the average we spend a year on the portion that you've cut out?
90 to 100,000 is on the repair service.
So out of that 150, you'd say 100 of that is, so that would tell me that the average amount of contract services you use every year is only 50,000 outside of what you just spoke of.
That's probably, on an average, that's correct. And again, we have to be careful about having money available for a major water main break. You know, a 12-inch line goes, a 16-inch line goes on Main Street. We have to have money to pay for that.
I'd like to make a recommendation that that line be cut by 20,000. From 120 to 100.
You all set, Counselor?
Yes, thank you.
Counselor Caddy?
I just want to touch on the hiring freeze. So far, well, tonight, we just submitted 4 names from the fire department to appointments. We're hiring 9 dispatchers. We're hiring 2 people in the water department and 1 program management assistant. That's 16 people we're hiring during a hiring freeze. Maybe we should get the city solicitor to explain to us what a hiring freeze is, because I don't think if we have one, it's working. And I think if the mayor still says we have one, she should probably take it away, because we're hiring 16 people right now. Just a point. I mean, it's right in front of us.
Counselor Reynolds?
If you're able to clarify for me, Mr. President, any monies that we cut from the budget, they don't disappear, they remain in the general fund, because these requests are monies back, in the general fund is backing it, am I correct?
If any money's cut, then the budget is now lower. So there could be supplements to that budget between now and when we set the tax rate, which could be in September or October. The key is, even with the enterprise funds in the city budget, is that we need to make sure that we can demonstrate that the budget is balanced when we set the rate. When we present with the assessors, the treasurer, myself, we present the budget and all the other related finances, including the projections of the revenue. And they look it over, and they want to see that it is balanced. If it isn't, then they could send it back to us, and we wouldn't have the tax rate set. So,
Well, no, the question that I had, excuse me if I didn't understand your answer. My question is, this is the general fund budget, so we have these monies, and now we're wondering how to spend the money, am I correct?
well, the monies are there based on projections. As long as the projections hold true, then, and the budget was passed as is, then it would be balanced. For example, the one item
I'm
that...
not asking you if it's balanced, I'm asking you if I take any line, or we take any line and say, let's not spend that now. That's actually what we're doing when we're cutting. We're saying, let's not spend that now. Let's retain that money for whatever reason the council feels. The money is there in the general fund, is it not? Because the council president has said on more than one occasion, if we cut, the mayor will have to find the money, and the mayor just comes back to ask for a hire in the future, that the mayor will have to find the money to pay for that. And I'm saying, I just want to know, well, the money won't disappear, it will simply be retained in the general fund. We've just...
Cash will remain in the general fund. However, the budget is lower, and that's, even if we have more revenue, more than the budget, if we set the rate, then you're pretty much stuck with that amount.
The rate could go down, in theory, couldn't it?
What, I'm sorry?
The taxes could go down, in theory.
Yes, they could. The other alternative
That
is...
might be a name of the council.
The other alternative is, as you did last year, was to ask the mayor to maybe do a supplemental for whatever you cut it by, to put it in for other municipal purposes or reserve, so that it could be used through a transfer during the year.
But it also could be used to cut the tax rate.
Yes, it could.
We should perhaps keep that in mind. Thank you.
Counselor Joseph.
Just quickly, since I've been one of the more critical ones over the last 5 years that you've gone into the retained earnings, I guess I'll say very good job of keeping, without going into the retained earnings, and giving us a budget that's going to give $24,000 more into retained earnings. So, good job.
Counselor Di Natale.
I have been advocating for several years that any amount of money we cut, I would be more than happy if the mayor put away into other municipal purposes, because I'm aware that we have to present a balanced budget. So in order to do that, any amount of money we cut, we can create a line item account in the miscellaneous section where the snow and ice reserve is, and just put a reserve number there. That would mean that the budget would still be the same in total. We would just be asking the mayor to move it from one spot to another. That way, department heads don't feel slighted that we took money from their budget and gave it to someone else. If everyone is more comfortable with not having to spend that, we can put it in a reserve account and still balance the books. Let these departments come back to us for more money if they need it. That has been my philosophy. Don't give them what they want, give them what they use, and if they truly need it, come back and ask for it. There's the added transparency. I've gotten the feeling over the last 4 years that the enterprise accounts are kind of sacred cows. We're not supposed to cut their budgets because they have revenues that balance their expenses. My theory is, and we'll see this when the wastewater department comes before us, that you've got your revenues and you got your expenses. And if there are cuts on the expense side, but your revenues are kind of firm, you should have more retained earnings next year if you're not spending as much. I just want to say that I don't believe the wastewater and water enterprise accounts should be immune to any cuts from us. That's all. I think they should be treated the same way as any other department, and that's basically it. But what Mrs. Saracen said, I think, is what a lot of communities do. They put the money in a reserve account. I think that's a good compromise. That way, anybody's afraid of spending that money because they don't know what's going to happen next year, don't spend it. Put it away. Keep it for a rainy day. Thank you.
Counselor Clark.
President, thank you. Hiring freeze or no freeze, Dennis, I think it's a good idea that you're looking ahead to getting a couple of younger workers in there, since our roster is getting a little bit older. You talked about, what was it, institutional knowledge. There's a value on institutional knowledge, and depending on what you're talking about, there can be a big value in institutional knowledge, and I think that's the case here. So I'm glad to see that you're looking down the road a little bit. It looks like that is going to come quicker than maybe we want it to be.
Agreed, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Reynolds.
Again, a question for Mr. Saracen. In the pages that we're currently looking at, I see no red lines indicating, and could you tell me why?
Right, I think to answer that, if you look at page 77, you'll see that the water department does offset their budget by their revenue, so that, as Council Di Natale pointed out, and Dennis, that shows you that their projected revenue should be able to cover these projected expenses.
Right. Well, are there grants available for this type of work in the city?
I believe there aren't any grants that are funding the general budget.
Well, I
It was
heard you
just
mention
land-
one grant. I don't know what it was, but
It's been a land
For
purchase.
watershed land.
land
purchases.
purpose.
Yeah, so it's not a regular operating, part of the operating budget.
Right, but perhaps an aggressive attitude towards seeking grants for water issues might help us. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Munier? Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Moving forward to the water enterprise. Page 71 through 75. Water enterprise, total revenue $9,389,320. Total personal services, $2,339,193. Total expense, $4,149,000. Total reimbursement to the city, $480,000. Total debt service, $3,062,854. Total capital expenditures, $178,000. Total expenses, $10,569,047. Total surplus deficit, $1,179,727. Mr. Jordan.
Councilors, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. Over the last year, just to maybe touch on a couple positives, is that we, with some new operation methods down at the plant, I would like to say that we've improved our compliance with our permit. We were putting out a better quality effluent, and that was all essentially done for a very, very low cost. It was, again, just a trial in order to keep this process and a method of treatment going. It will require additional investment down at the plant, but we did try out a new method of operating the system, which will reduce CSOs and bypasses down at the plant, which improves the overall water quality out in the Nashua River. We've brought on albeit small, a full-time sewer crew who is actively going out looking for problems out in the system. Right now, we only have 4 individuals doing that, but they are making some headway on finding problem areas. They've been working closely with DPW workers to find these areas, and they have been taking a proactive approach at trying to keep the system working properly. There is a lot of work to be done out there, as you all know, but with the limited bodies out there, they are doing a very good job. Moving forward for 2012, I did notice that there is one discrepancy on the personnel budget between the totals page on 71 and the detail on 73. If you notice, those numbers don't equal. And I just wanted to pass out a revised page 73.
Is one of them correct, Joe?
The total that you read off.
Yeah.
The
2,339,193
is the correct amount. And if you look on page 73,
Yeah.
it's showing a total of $2,359,094.
Okay. Do we know where that?
I could pass out what the real numbers on there should be.
Do we know where the mistake is on 73 that brought that?
Yes, we do, and I do have a copy. All the changes are highlighted in red.
Okay.
Okay, if I can pass this
Fine.
out to the councilors. Bottom of mine is page 1.
I'll do it, Joe, if you want. Go ahead and finish your presentation.
Most of those changes were due to step increases that were cut from the budget. And that essentially was a big part of it. On personal services, the first thing I'll bring right up front is the 6 new positions. Councilor Caddy, there's 22 new positions. I realize there is a hiring freeze on, and I guess my understanding was that any new hiring had to be done with the mayor's approval. The positions I'm looking for are to increase the sewer collection crew With a lot of the mandates coming down from EPA, I really need to get out there and take a proactive approach. As the council is well aware, if we don't do this, there are severe penalties that, and I don't mean to sound threatening, it's just, matter-of-factly, I think you've all have been updated on what's going on with this consent decree. And 4 of those positions are specifically related to the sewer crew. One is to hire a new superintendent. Similar to water, I have one manager down there who is will be retiring in the next 2 to 3 years. And again, once he's gone, there is no one to take over down there. And I think it's very important with all the changes that are going on right now that we get someone in there sooner versus later to learn the system, so that when the current chief engineer retires, someone is there and can, it'll be a smooth transition. The last position I'm looking for is, it's a position that was previously filled many years ago. It has been vacant for quite some time. That person is an engineering aide, and he would work a lot with the sewer collection crews, as well as Board of Health. There's a big oil and grease issue that we have from local restaurants, and we have, wonderful ordinances on, but there's no one to enforce it. I know Board of Health is stretched very thin, and, we're trying to work together with them to, aggressively go after violators of oil and grease, which is a very costly problem out in the sewer system. The rest of the budget, and I don't mean to just lightly go over it, but it's small increases in expenses and debt service, primarily due to just the increased cost of chemicals that we use at the plant. Debt service is new loans that we're going to be assuming this year. In a nutshell, that's where we're at.
Joe, if I could start on page 71.
Yes.
You're showing a revenue of $9,389,320.
Correct.
You're showing expenses of $10,569,047. It's giving you a deficit of $1,179,727.
How am I going to do that?
Is that on a anticipated increase?
Yes. I am.
I understand we're in a difficult situation here in discussing.
And I think I can.
But my comment is, and this isn't you, Mr. Jordan, this is the mayor. This is one more example. We have the fire department, okay? I can't even think of who the second one was. Board of Health. Another example of this budget having anticipated revenue increases that have not been approved. Now, this increase that won't be approved by this body. Any increases will be approved by the Wastewater Commission, but they haven't done that yet. And once again, we have an example of what I think tells us that this budget is not balanced. Thank you. Councilor Joseph.
In that same light, if we approve this budget with the 1.179 deficit and revenues aren't properly raised to make that deficit, doesn't that become a liability to the general fund?
Yeah, it could be, that could be one way that it could be resolved, or the city could be forced to do a budget amendment to balance, to get that department in balance. It would have to, whatever it is, whatever the solution is, it would have to be balanced, or they wouldn't set the tax rate, the Department of Revenue.
Okay,
So it would
this-
have to be resolved.
This needs to be resolved before October?
September, late September, early October, yeah.
Okay, so we will see something in the next couple of weeks to fix this?
I'm not sure. I'm not
If I
privy.
may,
Certainly.
I am going to the Wastewater Commission next week with working out the final details of a rate increase, and that would go into effect as of July 1st. And it would be sufficient enough to cover this deficit. I have been working with the rate consultant, CDM, and it's looking not only at this year, but comprehensive for the next 5 years where we need to be. And I will be presenting a proposal to the commission next week with the intent of having them vote on it next week. So before the fiscal year begins, the intention is to have a rate structure in place.
I don't know, I guess as a citizen that pays taxes in Fitchburg, as well as a city councilor who's representing those people as well, I'm at a point, it's not like I can go out and opt out and get somebody to empty my own trash. I can't go out and get somebody to do my own wastewater. And my only recourse to not paying this in the future is to move out of Fitchburg. This is just getting ridiculous. There's nobody we can contract this service to as a homeowner, and we just have the fees continue to skyrocket. I know that it's mandates, but it's getting out of hand.
Councilor Di Natale.
Mr. Jordan, you talked about the, down the pipe, that we're gonna have to do more capital infrastructure improvements and separations and whatnot. And I know that when we do these projects at a magnitude of that level, we have to bond, we have to take out a loan. What does that have to do with all these added personnel you're adding?
The added personnel, Counselor, and again, without going into a lot of detail, and again, we are still negotiating the consent decree.
Understand.
In that decree, there are several areas and tasks that need to be completed that we have not been doing and had not done ever in the past, which we really should have been doing. These personnel are to begin taking a proactive approach at managing the wastewater collection system. I know, and no one likes to pay for the service, but when the lines back up, let me tell you, the phone starts ringing. Nobody wants sewage in their house, but nobody wants to pay to make the system right. This is something, I am going to be very blunt, we should have taken this over 15 years ago. My predecessor, Peter Hughes, attempted to do this 15 years ago. Past councils, past mayors have always shot down those requests. We are in this position because of decisions we've made here in Fitchburg. Make no mistake about that. We should have done this long ago. We could have done it for less money than we are now, and that really is the reason we have this consent decree in front of us today.
If you have more personnel come on, why are you increasing the overtime budget?
The overtime budget, again, is going up. The east plant is staffed 24/7, like the water, like DPW, like many other crews. Half my staff is going to be retiring in the next 5 years. The vacations, the personal time, the time off that they have, when they take it off, I have no option. I have to fill those slots. This is 24/7.
The average spend on your overtime budget for the last 6 years is $214,000. And that's without these added people. So we've, on average, have spent $214, you're going to get $250, and you're getting 6 more people. Not to mention, this year alone, we've spent $168,000 on overtime in the wastewater department through May. That's the latest status I got. And this projection of $215 So we're going to spend $48,000 of overtime in 4 weeks?
Probably not.
Well, then once again, I go back, to and this isn't you, Mr. Jordan, this isn't your fault, again with these numbers. 90% of the time, I don't even look at this. I look at what Mr. Saracen gives me. I don't look at this. I mean, 48,000, I'm glad you said probably not. That's the honest answer, because you spend 168 for 11 months, you're going to spend 48 in 1 month, I don't see it happening. My problem, if you can understand it, is the average spend has been 215. This year, we're spending 168, and you're adding people next year. Common logic is, if you add people, you don't need as much overtime. That's how I've never heard it otherwise.
We're adding people in the sewer collection crew, not at the plant.
Okay, I'd like to make a recommendation, that be cut from 250 to 215 by 35,000. And I'll keep going. Ferrous chloride, $40,000. Average spend on ferrous chloride since 2006, 16 grand, and you're budgeting 40,000. I know you said the cost of chemicals have gone up, but we've, on average, have spent 16 grand. The highest amount we've ever spent in that account goes back to 2007, we spent $16,736. This year, we're projected to spend, what's this projection say? I'm curious. Ferrous chloride, this says we're going to spend 30. So far, we've spent 19. So we've spent 19 in 11 months, and we're going to spend 11,000 in the last month. I don't buy that number. I don't care what the explanation is, I don't buy that number. So I recommend that we cut ferrous chloride by $10,000 from 40 to 30 grand. And here's my logic on that one. $30,000 is $14,000 more than what we've averagely spent, we've spent on average in that account. And we've never broached 20,000 on this account. So I'm being generous, in my opinion, cutting it to 30. I could cut it more, but it's still 10 grand more than what we've ever incurred, even come close to incurring. And I'm not going to go through everything, what I'm going to do here. Taking that logic, you can take that with all the rest of them I'm going to do. The rest of these cuts I'm going to recommend, it's the same reasons. Polymer, I'd like to reduce that from 170 down to 155. Ash disposal, I'd like to reduce that from 200,000 to 170,000. Chlorine, I'd like to reduce that from 70,000 to 60,000. Other chemicals, 110 to 100. And last but not least, industrial pretreatment, 48,000 down to 28,000. And again, my reasons for making those cuts, it's the same as the ferrous chloride and the overtime. We've never even come close to these numbers. And all of a sudden, I'm going to be led to believe that next year, they're going to go up by 200-300%. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I don't care what the explanation is. The numbers tell a different story. Thank you.
Councilor Conry.
Yes, thank you.
Councilor Reynolds.
Have you lost totally the money that the city received for burning sludge?
I'm sorry?
For the furnace that you had there?
Yes.
And what would the city receive from that? It was money earned, was it not, when you took sludge in and you burned it?
Yes, and we still take sludge in.
Oh, I thought that you had trouble with that furnace.
We do, and we are doing our best to maintain it, and the money that we take in there helps to offset the rates. We make about 30 cents on the dollar. For every dollar we take in, we spend about 70 cents in O&M cost, operation and maintenance of that. We do generate a positive cash, although it's not much, and that...
How much is it a year that you generate? Is it in here in this? Well, in general, ballpark.
Okay, this year, just, we're probably going to make about $300,000.
And in your best year, what did you make in your memory?
I can give you gross numbers.
Yes. Well,
Gross
no.
numbers, we used to be up in the 1.7 million. That's gross. And this year, our gross number will be about 1.3 million.
Is there any chance of that increasing?
Most likely not. And the reason for that is, again, our compliance record is such that we really need to operate the plant differently, which requires us to waste more of our own sludge. By doing that, we have reduced our violations.
So you're saying you don't have the capacity
We
to
don't
bring
have
in
that
other people's?
capacity anymore, so in order to waste more of ours, we need to make room, which means cutting off outside vendors. If we cut everyone off, and it would be a great expense if we didn't take an outside sludge.
Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Jordan? Counselor Di Natale.
Forgot to ask about revenues. I asked Mr. Munier how they're doing on the revenue side. An analysis of the revenues for 11, based on the latest Status E, it looks like we're not going to meet our projections. We're going to not even come close.
I beg to,
I'm showing total budget for revenues for 11 is $10 million, $9,995,000, and we've collected through the third week of May, $8,062,484. So we have $1.932 million left to collect to meet our revenue target.
and our expenses, council, are $8,042,959,000. We have a $19,525 to the plus.
Well, I'm glad I'm not saying
Going
you're...
by the Status C.
I'm not saying your expenses are exceeding your revenues. What I'm
Right.
saying is, I would like that revenue number to be higher than your expenses,
As would I.
and
And it is, Counselor. Okay, as we've discussed previously, you called me on this one, and a big part of the revenue shortfall, if you'll notice, is sanitary septage. I have no control over who comes to Fitchburg. I cannot order anyone to come to Fitchburg, and if people decide to go elsewhere or go out of business or start a new business, that's out of my control. For the last 5 years running, we have taken in plus or minus 2 million gallons a month of septage. This year, those numbers are way below.
see, I look at this as the expense, unlike the airport, your expenses aren't necessarily tied to your revenues in terms of whatever you spend doesn't influence what your revenues will be. Your revenues are a budgeted number. If your expenses were around $8.5 million, but you collected that $10 million, you'd have $1.5 million left over to go into retained earnings. So that's why I'm focusing on the revenue side more than the expense side. And I'm not, when I ask this question, Mr. Jordan, I'm not blaming you for the shortfall. I want you to explain to the council and the public why you might not hit your target. Not because of management issues, but like you said, sanitary septic is a big one, and the sewer connection permits, that's another one. Is that another instance where...
The sewer connection permits, I speak with the planning department. We do our absolute best to make an educated guess. If somebody anywhere has a crystal ball that can tell me, I will adjust. I do my very best with the resources I have to try to determine what my revenues are going to be for a given line item. For the connection permits, there were 2 large developments. One has paid in full, and the other has not connected yet. He's running behind on construction. And
This is why I'm asking the question.
And
I just
that's-
want an explanation. That's all, your answer.
And that's it.
That's fine. All right, I'm satisfied.
And I think the others, we're not doing too bad.
No, not really, but there are 3 or 4 accounts that are overshadowing the good accounts, the accounts that are doing well.
Yes.
Like the sanitary septage and the sewer connection permits.
And the other one, I'll spotlight it, is industrial billings, and the balance of those funds are due in June.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor? All those opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, councilors.